Killing was starting to take its toll on me, so I got my wife involved. Black bags, a hacksaw and a shovel. The cashier looked at me funny as he had rung up all the items. "All you're missing is the lime," he said with a concerned look on his face. I nervously laughed as I handed him my credit card. "Cash or card?" the clerk asked. "Fuck it, I charge on my wife's card. I doubt she will mind." I grabbed all the stuff and made my way back out to the car. I loaded the stuff in the back seat before jumping in the driver's seat. "Are you sure you're up for this?" I asked. My wife put her hand on my leg before giving it a reassuring squeeze. "I can't keep letting you do this on your own, Mike." We drove for hours. We were making sure this time we were well out of the state. Usually, I don't get my wife involved in this, but every time I do this it takes a bit of me with it. I think my wife just wants to share the burden. We were well out of state by the time the banging started. Soon she was going to be fully awake and screaming to be let out. If we got pulled over, how do we explain away the screaming girl in our trunk? We drove for a bit up the mountain to a spot I'd planned in advance. By the time we pulled up, she was fully awake and screaming to get out. I wanted to break her legs so she couldn't escape. It's what I usually do. But the wife thought it was cruel. I told my wife to be prepared as I got ready to open the trunk. I whipped open the trunk, and out she jumped, knocking my wife over. As she ran for her life, I grabbed the rope I had tied to her neck, snapping her off her feet and onto her back. "Kill her quickly," screamed my wife. I grabbed the shovel, and just as she was about to jump back on her feet, I cracked her in the back of the head, killing her instantly. We made sure to go deep into the woods to bury the body. My wife helped me drag the dead weight up a hill before we found a good spot to bury her. The sun was starting to rise by the time the hole was deep enough to bury her, deep enough so not even the animals could get to her. We decided to stop over in a motel before making the long journey home. Killing always took it out of me and my wife just wanted to sleep in a bed. "Do you think it was enough this time?" my wife asked. I cradled my wife in my arms as we lay exhausted on a dingy old mattress. "I'm sure this will be the last time," I said, trying my best to reassure my wife, but I was doing this long enough to know that probably wouldn't be the case. We must have drifted off at some stage because I suddenly found myself being jolted awake by the sound of broken glass. "What is it, dear?" The broken glass cracked under my feet as I walked to check the window. "I'm not sure. Hopefully, it's nothing." I didn't want to alarm her, but I knew from the blood on the window we weren't alone. I could hear the beating of my heart as I followed the trail of blood to the bathroom. Beads of sweat rolled down my back as I slowly turned the door handle. "You were starting to scare me, Mike," said my wife as she sat shaking on the bed. I slowly opened the door. I could hear slow, shallow breathing emanating from the darkness of the bathroom. My hand rattled with fear as I searched around for the light switch. She stood staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She was black with the dirt from the hole we had just buried her in. "Why did you put me in that dark place? Don't you love me?" she said as her disjointed neck cracked as she turned to face me. I slowly backed up out of the bathroom. She opened her mouth and let out an unholy scream before lunging towards me. "Get the shovel," I screamed at my wife. I managed to subdue her on the ground as my wife ran into the room with a shovel. "I think you need to do what we talked about," said my wife as she handed me the shovel. I brought the blade of the shovel down hard on her neck, cutting her head from her body. I know, cutting up the body seems extreme, but it was my wife's idea after all. It was just something I could never stomach. But we have exhausted all ideas at this moment. When our daughter first died in a car accident, it broke us. She was our only daughter, our world. Don't ask me how, but one night I came downstairs for a glass of water, and there she was just sitting there. We thought it was a miracle, but eventually, we had to face the truth. It wasn't our daughter that came back. The first few times I killed her, it killed me a little bit every time. It's been 20 years now since she first died. Hopefully cutting her body into pieces will do the trick.